Nice and bright for a Monday. Well, good morning, Queensland, and it's wonderful to be here at this massive Woolworths distribution centre here at Larapinta. And this is I think the largest distribution centre in the Southern Hemisphere. And we know that one of our main jobs is to keep the supply chains going through COVID. And I wanted to come out here today and see firsthand the work that people are doing in this centre. But also too, we want to prioritise these groups of workers to get their vaccine. So I'll have a little bit more to say about that in a moment, but I'm quite sure that everyone out there wants to know our case numbers for today. So we've got 2 new cases. One is linked to that Indooroopilly cluster and was in home quarantine. So once again, thank you to all of our families that are doing home quarantine. We appreciate it. And the second one was overseas acquired in hotel quarantine. So that's really good as well. So Queensland, you are doing a terrific job. But what we are seeing is the continual escalation of cases in New South Wales and Victoria. And we have to try and keep Queensland as safe as possible. But we are very concerned that there could be another outbreak at any day. There's a lot of virus circulating in New South Wales. Those case numbers are increasing, and we're seeing increased numbers of cases in Victoria as well. So Queenslanders, keep doing the great job. Dr. Young updated us this morning that police a couple of weeks ago actually intercepted a man on the southwest border and turned that man around. That gentleman later tested positive to COVID. So the police are doing everything they can. I want to give that assurance to the public. But at some stage, my greatest fear is that either coming in through our airports or coming in across our borders, someone is going to come in with COVID. So we have to be incredibly vigilant, and that is why if anyone has any symptoms whatsoever, please go and get tested. And of course, our police, our frontline services, our health staff, everybody is doing a great job. And you only have to see the workers here at this distribution centre. There are some 2,000 workers that work here. We added our distribution outlets workers to 1B, the category 1B. We haven't had a high uptake of that. So what we're planning to do is when we get that 100,000 extra doses of Pfizer that's coming in through from the federal government, we're going to be setting up vaccination hubs where we will actually take people out to these big centres like these distribution centres, and we will give the people the opportunity to get the vaccine. So we've also identified meatworks as well. We want to make sure that the people who are working in our supply chains of meatworks are vaccinated, and our food distribution centres. So we've identified about 28 in total, and we will be prioritising those once that extra vaccine comes in. So that's fantastic news. All right, I might hand over to Dr. Young to say a few words, and got the Deputy Premier here who's been working very closely with the distribution companies. I want to thank him for that, keeping the lines of communication updated. And it's good to be in Leanne Enoch's electorate as well. So I'll hand over to Dr. Young.
So 2 new cases overnight, one in home quarantine related to the Indooroopilly cluster, so a household contact of a case there in their home in quarantine throughout their infectious period, so of no risk at all. But I am so grateful for all of those people who continue to be in home quarantine. It's going on and on for them. I'm very, very grateful. Then the second case is someone who returned with their family from Philippines in hotel quarantine and now is positive. There have been other members of that family previously positive, so it's another contact there. Now, our biggest risk as we go forward is, of course, the increasing numbers of cases that we're seeing every single day, both in Victoria, New South Wales and the ACT. So could I just remind people, if you do have a need to cross the border to go into that border zone in New South Wales, when you come back into Queensland, you have got to practice exactly what you would have to practice if you're in New South Wales, which means stay-at-home requirements, wearing masks at all times. And that applies whether you're a Queensland resident coming back home into Queensland or a New South Wales resident coming across the border for one of those very limited reasons. So you need to wear masks, and you can only do that task that you're allowed to cross the border for. You can't take the opportunity to go and visit cinemas or go to a pub, etc., etc. You really are bound by exactly the same stay-at-home orders. So that's for anyone who travels down into the border zone at this point in time while we're seeing those increased cases. So we are seeing increased cases getting closer and closer to our border, so it's only a matter of time before one of them crosses. But our police are doing an amazing job. They are absolutely brilliant at what they're doing, but eventually it will cross. And our best defence for that is to get vaccinated. So that's why we're here today, looking at how we can quickly vaccinate key people, such as people working in distribution centres and a whole lot of other people. If you haven't gone online yet and registered to get vaccinated, please do so immediately, because we're rapidly getting through all of those people who've expressed interest. So we need more people. And that's the most efficient way of us organising that all of our clinics are full. So if you're 60 years of age or older, go and get the AstraZeneca vaccine if you haven't already had it. And there are still a few people who haven't. Go and get it at a pharmacy or your GP. If you're under 60, 16 through to 59, please go online and book with Queensland Health. There are some GPs providing Pfizer now, so you can go on the Commonwealth Government eligibility checker for the vaccine, and you can book with a GP, or you can come and book with Queensland Health. Then those 12 to 15-year-old kids, if you're a First Nations child, you can come forward and immediately get vaccinated, or if you're a child with severe underlying health conditions, you can get vaccinated now. Other children will just have to wait a little bit longer till we get more vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. Good morning. I think one of the things we've all learned over the last 18 months is there's lots of things that go on behind the scenes that we take for granted, that we often don't notice, that during the pandemic we have noticed, and one of those is food distribution. We're really grateful to our essential workers in distribution centres like this one and in our retail supermarkets who've made sure that we've had food to eat throughout this pandemic, even during lockdowns. They've made sure we're fully stocked with toilet paper and beef mince, even when people have thought they needed to stockpile those goods. We've already prioritised distribution centre workers in the vaccine rollout, and now we're announcing an in-reach program for abattoirs and distribution centres, so that in the future, if we do have a COVID outbreak or a lockdown, those essential workers who'll need to continue to go to work can be protected. It's incredibly important. If you look where we are right now at the Woolworths Distribution Centre, this is the beating heart of the Woolworths system in Queensland and northern New South Wales. 1,000 truck movements a day, millions of cartons every week going from here to Woolworths stores right across Queensland and New South Wales. We've worked really closely with our supermarket chains to make sure that they've been able to keep operating throughout the entire pandemic. They've done a fantastic job, and I want to thank them, as well as all of those essential workers in our distribution centres and our supermarkets. They're just fantastic.
I just want to echo the comments of the Chief Health Officer in relation to those Queensland residents who are crossing the border into New South Wales as essential workers. It is important that you understand that the moment you cross into New South Wales, you are bound by their stay-at-home directions when you come back into Queensland. So that means that you have restricted movement, you must stay at home and only leave your home for those essential reasons. This is really important because you are going into an area that is a heightened risk, that we are seeing more and more cases along that border zone, and we are seeing more and more cases across New South Wales. So we need to be vigilant, and as essential workers, you have a responsibility to make sure you're following those directions so you aren't risking it coming into Queensland and, of course, risking your safety and that of your family and friends. I want to give a big shout out. We hit record numbers of vaccines over the last 7 days. We've done 112,397 vaccines in our state clinics in the last 7 days. And our First Nations clinics that we set up on Saturday at Caboolture and Redcliffe saw 221 people being vaccinated. So thank you to everyone coming forward. We said all along that we would increase our vaccinations as we get more supply. So Queenslanders need to know that we will be rapidly increasing booking opportunities and opportunities to get vaccinated throughout the next couple of months. And that means that you have much more of a chance of getting a booking in one of our state clinics in the next few weeks, more than you ever had before. Thank you to everyone who has been getting registered, but we are seeing a rapid reduction in people registering because we're doing so well at our vaccinations. As of yesterday, we have 79,599 people waiting for a booking with Queensland Health. Now, that is less than 1 week's booking. So we want to see many more Queenslanders coming out and booking their vaccination. We know you can go to GPs and community pharmacies as well, and we want you to do that. But if you are 16 to 59 and you haven't been able to get a booking with a GP who is delivering the Pfizer, we have Pfizer, and we want you to come forward and get vaccinated. We don't want to see a situation where we have vaccines sitting there and people aren't coming in the door to get vaccinated. Now is the time. You only need to look at New South Wales, ACT and Victoria to know why it is so important. Those communities are flooding into vaccination centres now because they've got a massive outbreak. Don't wait until we have a massive outbreak. Come forward now, get vaccinated before this virus is in our community again. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier and Dr. Young. We're delighted to be hosting this announcement here today on site. Our supply chain team members here at Larapinta and across our network have really done a great job during this pandemic. Over the past 18 months, we've seen record volumes come through the distribution centres, and we've also seen a lot of uncertainty. And our team members, day in, day out, have continued to turn up for work and make sure that we supply the stock for Queensland, for our groceries and our supermarkets. So today, we're happy to have the Queensland Government make this announcement for vaccines on site. It's going to make a huge difference for our team members. Now, our sites operate with COVID-safe plans, and each site has an individual plan as well. Now, for us today, with this announcement, it's going to move those plans to the next level. So having vaccinations on site is going to enable our team members to efficiently and quickly and safely get vaccinations on site, which will help facilitate and make our workplaces a lot safer. We'd just like to, on behalf of Woolworths and the broader industry, just like to sincerely thank the government for this great initiative of bringing vaccinations on site. Thank you.
Hello, Chris Gazenbeek. I'm the Brand Secretary of the SDA. We represent all the workers out here and have done so for more than 3 decades. Very pleased that the government has worked to elevate distribution centre workers to 1B. Very supportive of it. It allows people the opportunity in this critical sector to take the choice to go and get vaccinated. Obviously, we're very pleased to hear that over coming weeks we've got to make it easier for people to be vaccinated. So some people would have already taken up the opportunity, but obviously it's very important to make it as simple and as easy a process as possible. So for the establishment of vaccine hubs in the distribution centres, such as this one here, there's 2,000 workers here, as Dale's obviously already mentioned. It would just make it easier and give them the ability, if they choose to come and get vaccinated. So as a union, supporting the workers throughout this pandemic. Obviously, the food security of the nation is at risk if these DCs go down. They're already supporting New South Wales and all of Queensland at the present time. So we encourage all of those that wish to get vaccinated to do so and to do so as quickly as possible. Thanks.
Good morning. Overnight, we had 1,739 vehicles cross our borders. We had 1,360 heavy vehicles cross our borders. We refused entry to 154 vehicles at our borders, so most of the people at our border crossings are doing the right thing. Since 5 p.m. yesterday, we've had over 210 essential workers cross our borders, and we have not had to refuse entry to one single person since 5 p.m. yesterday. So thank you for those people for doing the right thing. We've processed over 680 domestic passengers through our airport in the last 24 hours. And we've had to quarantine 326 of those people. In relation to compliance, unfortunately, we had to give out 2 penalty infringement notices yesterday for people doing the wrong thing at our borders. And we arrested a 55-year-old male at the protest yesterday who became quite violent and abusive towards police. So it was very disappointing to be able to have to do that overnight, and we handed out 18 masks overnight. In relation to the protest yesterday at the borders, I can say it was very disappointing to see the behaviour that occurred at the border yesterday. Now is not the time to behave like that at protest. We saw a lot of people doing the right thing at the border yesterday who were participating in that protest. And as always, Queensland Police will respect the right for people to do the right thing and get their voice heard at protest. Following that protest yesterday, Queensland Police will be reviewing the footage of the protest, and we'll be following up people who may have committed public health direction offences yesterday. And we'll be working with our counterparts in New South Wales moving forward as to how we'll better deal with that. Thank you.
I'm happy to take some questions. Yeah, I was, can I share the Deputy Commissioner's view? And we had a phone hook up with the Commissioner today as well. Look, I'm very disappointed. New South Wales has stay-at-home orders for a purpose. We are seeing an escalation of the virus, of the Delta strain in New South Wales. And the way you get through this is if you have a stay-at-home order, is to stay at home.
A border bubble with the Tweed. The Tweed Mayor says there's discussions with the New South Wales government.
Well, no, they've rejected that. So I got a letter from the New South Wales Premier flatly rejecting that proposition. So from our point of view, we have tried. And, you know, if you're living in northern New South Wales, you can make representation to your local members. But the stay-at-home orders apply to all of New South Wales.
Cabinet in the States in regards to the 80% vaccination rate.
Okay, so in relation to that, I think the Prime Minister's been very clear that Doherty has been doing research looking at 70 and 80% of vaccination rates to allow some easing of restrictions. That modelling and research was actually premised on the basis that there would only be around 30 cases in the Australian community. Well, there's not 30 cases at the moment, there's thousands of cases. So my understanding is some further research is being commissioned by the federal government to look at now what that means and the implications for that. But we know the fastest way out of this pandemic is for vaccination. So I would hope when we get more supply, we can get more people vaccinated. So in Queensland now, from memory, it's about 46% have had their first dose, which is fantastic news. And today we're looking at where are our supply chains in Queensland. If we were to get a Delta outbreak, where do we need to get the people vaccinated? So that's why we are ramping up the priority areas for people who are working in our meatworks and people who are working in our distribution centres. You only have to look around here today, the largest distribution centre of this kind for Woolworths in the Southern Hemisphere.
To get vaccinated if they don't know when the borders are going to reopen?
Well, can I just say, you know, I don't think it's a case, like, no one wants New South Wales to give up, okay? No one wants New South Wales to give up. And there are, at the moment, millions of people in New South Wales doing the right thing because they want to see their economy and their lifestyle return. And that's the same situation in Victoria. Now, we want to see Australia reunited again as quickly and safely as possible. But this is the Delta strain. We know how infectious it is, and we are learning more and more about it as each day goes on. Now, the other issue of concern is, of course, children. So we've got to get the population vaccinated, and then we have to get children vaccinated, especially, I think, in those high school years. So a lot more work is being done at that level as well, because we know that it can be spread. And if you look at the research in other countries, that's exactly what's happening in other countries as well. So this is a big job. It is a big job for everyone. And I just want to thank Queenslanders for doing the right thing. But I know, and Queenslanders know, that any day this could change. It's like a waiting game. Any day this could change, and we need to be ready. Sorry? Well, they've got stay-at-home orders. Like, I am extremely disappointed and concerned about this kind of behaviour that puts people at risk. And I understand families and businesses want to be reunited, and there is such a similarity across that border there. And I think even Peter Dutton agreed with me about having that border with the river, to have that sort of common, and we don't agree a lot, can I tell you that, but you know, when something makes common sense to keep communities together, that would have been a classic example. But unfortunately, you know, I respect the decision of the New South Wales Premier, the New South Wales residents, and you know, so be it.
The people on the border.
Sorry? Well, I don't think either side of police, New South Wales or Queensland, expected it to be as large as that.
Premier,
These are very difficult times. These are very difficult times for everybody.
Premier, on the Fraser Island bushfire, we've got some emails from a top parks bureaucrat who was trying to downplay public messaging during the bushfire. Does that concern you?
Look, I'll have a look at that. My understanding is that everything was included in that IGEM report, so I'm happy to chase that up.
This wasn't part of the IGEM report.
Wasn't it? Okay,
no,
I'm happy to have a look at that. Sorry?
Your office was aware of this?
No, I haven't been briefed on it, so I'll find out for you.
Are you worried that this becomes a factor in the public service rather than pure messaging to the public, particularly during disaster?
I said I'll have a look at that issue. I'm not going to comment until I have a look at it.
The protesters that are on the border, they're risking the health and safety of millions of Queenslanders. They said they're going to keep doing these protests. Do we need more troops on the border?
Well, my understanding is the ADF is coming in next week, Wednesday, this week? Yeah, this week we've got ADF coming in, and they'll be there along the border as well. These are difficult times, everyone. These are difficult times, but the stay-at-home order applies to New South Wales residents. Like, I can't be clearer.
The Prime Minister said that these, the Doherty Institute signs will remain even with the New South Wales outbreak. He said nothing's changed in relation to those thresholds. This has to be different to you in private. Why are they commissioning more research?
No, they have commissioned more research because the goalposts have changed. So the goalposts have changed in the fact that it was premised on there being around 30 cases in the community, and now we have thousands of cases. So, you know, our aim is always to suppress that virus, but even 70% and 80% vaccination rates, as I've said, and what's in the modelling as well, is that there will be some limited restrictions and some limited or specified lockdowns. So this is a book that has not been written, folks. This is a book. This is uncharted territory, and the best way out of this pandemic is vaccination. So do I support the 70 and 80% vaccination of this country? Absolutely. Why do you think we're out here today? To get our workers vaccinated. I've seen what's happened in New South Wales. I'm out here in these communities in the outer suburbs of Brisbane, making sure that we can get our workers vaccinated. And the way we get them vaccinated faster is to have more supply.
Has the Prime Minister and other state premiers acknowledged that the goalposts have changed, or is it just Queensland on its own?
Sorry.
So you said the goalposts have changed in terms of the 80% vaccination and lockdown?
No. Everyone's still aiming for the 70 and 80%. In relation to the goalposts, it was all premised on there being about 30 cases. There are now, 9,000 cases or more? 9,000. That's a lot more than 30. So we actually need to get the modelling. Yes, everyone on National Cabinet acknowledged that the extra research needs to happen. The extra modelling now needs to happen. We want a safe way out of this pandemic. Let's get everyone vaccinated. So if you're out there, tell your friends and family, go and get vaccinated.
Premier, why weren't you briefed about the Fraser Island bushfire, given that there is some top bureaucrats who are trying to downplay public messaging to the public during an emergency? Do you think that's something you should have been informed
Well, there was
about?
a huge IGEM report that was tabled in Parliament relating to that bushfire.
But it didn't cover these public messagings that have been
Sorry?
revealed. It didn't cover the public messages that have been revealed in this story today. So is that something you should have been across?
No, I'll have a look at it when I get back to work. I've been very busy. Okay? Sorry? In what respect?
Well, we had in towns where there was a stolen car over the weekend, ran the security car, there were more breaking and enters. We've obviously seen some violence made. Look at the legislation.
No, we've put in place the toughest legislation that this state has ever seen, and as I said the other day, people criticise me for saying it's too tough. So the legislation's got to be given its time to work. The $500 million is steadily rolling out. We've got extra money for supporting youth organisations. We've got extra money for detention centre capacity. You just don't spend $500 million